When we talk about the development of AI, it's so easy to just focus on the technology. But what we argue in our paper is that this is so much more than a technological leap. It's actually one of the biggest evolutionary moments our species has ever faced. It's a fundamental shift in how we organize ourselves, how we cooperate, and how we solve problems.
And that brings up a really critical question. AI is obviously evolving at a breakneck pace. But what are we actually evolving toward? This isn't just a technical question for engineers. No, this is a question for our entire civilization. And honestly, the stakes could not be any higher.
And in our paper, we don't mince words. We argue that this is the single most important choice humanity faces right now. We're at a fork in the road, a choice between two completely different futures, and each one is being shaped by the kinds of worldviews we decide to embed in our AI.
So let's explore that first path. Unfortunately, it's the one we're on by default right now. We call it the extractive path, and it's being driven by a set of really powerful, deeply held ideas about how the world works.
These are the kinds of worldviews that are dominating AI development today. You've got things like technological determinism, this idea that progress is just inevitable and that we don't really have a say in it. Then there's hyper-individualism, which always puts personal gain above the collective good. Market fundamentalism, the belief that the market is always the answer. And of course, anthropocentric dominance, which basically treats our planet like a resource to be used up. These ideas are literally shaping the code, the algorithms, and the ultimate goals of the AI we're all building.
And here's where it gets really crucial. When you combine these worldviews, they create a dynamic that we call the cancer pattern. And what we mean by that is very specific. It's a dynamic where optimizing for one part, like, say, maximizing corporate profit, or even something as simple as our own personal convenience, systematically undermines the health of the larger system, the society, the environment, everything it's connected to. Just like with cancer, what looks like success for one small part actually leads to the failure of the entire system.
And you can literally see how this damage cascades downward. At the individual level, our non-stop drive for convenience can actually start to erode our own abilities. At the corporate level, maximizing profits often means pushing social harms onto everybody else. At the societal level, so-called algorithmic efficiency can completely bypass democratic processes. And then at the planetary level, all these short-term human benefits are being paid for by ecological collapse. It's a vicious downward spiral where harm at one level just weakens all the others.
And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. In our research, we found concrete examples of this pattern everywhere. Take Facebook's own internal studies, for example. They knew their algorithms were toxic for the mental health of teenagers, but they prioritized growth anyway. Or look at the robo-debt scandal in Australia, where an automated system wrongly sent debt notices to over 500,000 people, causing immense suffering, all for the sake of efficiency. Okay, but there is another way. This brings us to the second path, which is a much more hopeful alternative that we call the pro-social path. This path is guided by worldviews that actually recognize that we're all interdependent. So instead of hyper-individualism, it's about seeing ourselves as deeply interconnected. Instead of market fundamentalism, it's about common stewardship, this idea of taking care of our shared resources. It's a path that's designed from the ground up to foster cooperation and shared flourishing. And the dynamic here is the complete mirror opposite of the cancer pattern. We call it the life pattern. This is a system where success at one level, whether it's for an individual, an organization, a society, or the planet, actually reinforces success at all the other levels. It creates a virtuous cycle, a kind of upward spiral of shared success.
This slide right here really gets to the heart of the choice we're facing. The extractive path, it leads to erosion at every single level of our skills, of our democracy, of our planet. But the pro-social path is all about building up. It enhances our capabilities, it strengthens our democracy, and it helps us integrate with our planet in a regenerative way. I mean, the contrast is just so stark, and the outcomes couldn't be more different.
So how do we actually find our way to this better future? Right? It's not just about wishful thinking. It's about using a practical compass to guide our choices in how we design and govern AI.
And that compass, we argue, comes from the Nobel Prize-winning work of the political economist Elinor Ostrom. She identified 8 core design principles for building successful cooperative groups. These are principles like having clear boundaries, making sure that the people affected by the rules get to help make them, and having ways to resolve conflicts that are accessible to everyone. You can really think of these as the institutional DNA for making cooperation work.
And let me be clear,
These aren't just some abstract ideals you'd read about in a textbook. In our research, we found that these principles are incredibly practical. They have been successfully applied to manage really complex systems all over the world.
I mean, just take Taiwan's V Taiwan initiative. It's a perfect example of pro-social AI in action. They used AI not to replace human judgment, but to actually enhance it. It allowed thousands of citizens to deliberate and find consensus on complicated national laws. This proves that we can use technology to strengthen democracy, not to undermine it.
And all of this brings us to the urgency of our choice. The decision between these two paths isn't something we can just postpone. We are in a critical and very rapidly closing window of opportunity. In our paper, we argue that humanity has only about 3 to 5 years to consciously choose which path to take. After that, we think the path we're on will become locked in. The technology, the institutions, even our own habits will make it incredibly difficult to ever change course. So why now? Why such a short window? Well, it's because we're in a perfect storm. AI capabilities are advancing way faster than our ability to govern them. At the same time, the window we have to demonstrate that better alternatives even exist is closing because people are just getting used to the harms. And all the while, our own mindsets are becoming more rigid, which makes change that much harder. Our very ability to choose a different future is at risk. Ultimately, this whole thing comes down to a choice between two stories. There's a story of competition, where we believe progress only comes from individual victory, or there's a story of cooperation, where we understand that we thrive only when we thrive together. There's a metaphor that I think captures this choice perfectly. An economist might talk about the invisible hand of the market, where competition supposedly magically creates cooperation. But a gardener knows the real truth. In a forest, it's the invisible network of fungi underground, the cooperation, that has to come first. That network allows the entire forest to thrive, and it only enables the kind of healthy competition that strengthens the whole system. So the question for all of us is, which invisible hand will guide the AI we build? The choice is ours, but the ground beneath our feet is hardening fast.